We're going to be heading to Chattanooga by taking Interstate 24. Come on, let's go! Alright everyone, today we're going to be talking about Interstate 24 and why it's not the best signed interstate. Sure, it is signed correctly at most major junctions, but the mileage signs say something otherwise because there are a lot of one-liners on this road. And plus we have this really stupid mileage sign, as you can see there. Also, this road is pretty scenic down in eastern Tennessee, so I can give credit to that. So let us get started with this awesome road. But first, you're watching TheDerpHog, where I make highways content on all sorts of different topics. If you've been enjoying it, be sure to hit that like button. And if you've been really enjoying it, be sure to smash that subscribe button so you're notified on all future videos. And if you really want to help out the channel, become a member today, where you get custom cool emojis, early access to future videos, along with one free extra request per month. And if you don't want to become a member, you can always just pay $3 for a intersection request in future videos. Those highways will be listed down in the description below, and I'll make sure to shout you out when that video releases. So let's get on with the highway. As you can see here, this is the map of Interstate 24 as it runs from Interstate 57 all the way south of Marion, Illinois, through the states of Illinois, Kentucky, Tennessee, Georgia, ending at Interstate 75 in Chattanooga, Tennessee. And this colored portion is the part that I've been on personally. So with that, I'm talking about eastbound Interstate 24. We actually begin here just outside of Mount Vernon, Illinois on Interstate 64. Where we're going to be about to merge into Interstate 57, and we have this cool sign telling us that it will take us to Interstate 24. And then on the other side of Mount Vernon, 164 splits off from Interstate 57. We have another sign telling us to keep straight on Interstate 57 to get to Interstate 24. And then a ways down the road, we get another sign telling us that Interstate 24 is exit 44, and it'll take us to Metropolis and Paducah this time. So, what happened in Nashville? Anyways, about 50 miles south, we finally begin at Interstate 57, where we can sign east for Nashville, which is a good choice. And in fact, on our first mileage sign, we get Paducah as our secondary and Nashville as our primary from 180 miles away. And our first exit is exit 7 for Goreville and Tunnel Hill, Illinois, respectively. And our first major exit is US Highway 45, which will take you to Vienna and Harrisburg, Illinois. And then here we meet US 45 once again as we're about to cross over the Ohio River. And it's the road that will take you into Metropolis, which I believe there is a Superman statue there, so that is cool. And after the US 45 exit, we get another mileage sign and we get Nashville still as our primary from 145 miles away. So at least IDOT's doing very well with Interstate 24 eastbound. And then we're now entering into the state of Kentucky. Yay! And after crossing over the Ohio River, we're entering into the city of Paducah. Our first major exit is for US Highway 60, and we get a pull through for the Kentucky Dam and Nashville. And then we also meet with US Highway 62 and US 45 for a third time, as they're also going to Mayfield, Kentucky. And then here we meet with US Highway 68, and this is actually near its western terminus. It ends at US 62 about a half a mile north of this junction. Anyways, up the road, we're meeting with the exit for Interstate 69 South, as 69 North is going to be joining with us to have a concurrency. And here we meet with US Highway 62 right before we're about to cross over the Tennessee River. And I kind of have a story about US 62. So during my Springfield trip last year, the GPS was trying to tell us to take US 62 over the Tennessee River because there is construction on Interstate 24 and 69. But sadly we stayed on 24 and 69 because there was still one lane open. So I never got to experience US 62. On our next mileage sign, we get Nashville still as our primary from 124 miles away, and we exit for Interstate 69, 14. And here we meet with US Highway 62, and this time US Highway 641 as our routine sign for Eddyville, and I'm not going to try to pronounce the second town. And here we get a big Interstate 24 shield and a teeny tiny Interstate 69 shield. And this is where Interstate 69 splits off of Interstate 24 as it heads to Henderson and Elizabethtown. And this is my own picture up here because I didn't get the entire sign, only managed to get just 69. And our next mileage chime, we get Nashville still, once again, from 106 miles away, with a couple of two Kentucky cities as our secondary and tertiary, respectively. And this is here in Cadiz, where we meet with US Highway 68 once again, and Kentucky Highway 80. And then here we meet the Pennyroyal Parkway, which is actually Interstate 169, and it will take you up to Hopkinsville. Surprisingly, that we're meeting Interstate 169 like 40 miles east of Interstate 69. And then always down the road, we're now entering into the state of Tennessee. Let us see what Tennessee has to offer. And our first exit is for Tennessee Highway 48, which will take you into Clarksville. And then we're also meeting with US Highway 79 all the way up here in Clarksville, Tennessee. Man, I should do a video on US 79 someday. And here we get a one-liner with just Nashville from 43 miles away. And always down the road, we're now meeting with US Highway 431, and it's just being signed a neighborhood. I do not like that. That should be Springfield, Tennessee. And then after US 431, we get another one-liner with Nashville from being only 8 miles away. I mean, yes, Nashville is both the biggest city and the capital of Tennessee, but I do not like one-liners being only from like a small distance away. There are other places that can be acknowledged along Interstate 24 that can be signed with Nashville here. You just don't need Nashville by itself, DDOT. And then here, always down the road, we're now going to be joining with Interstate 65 as we head towards downtown Nashville. And here's my own picture of the Nashville skyline along Interstates 24 and 65. And here's some more Nashville pictures. And here's a picture of Nissan Stadium, home of the Tennessee Titans, from Interstate 24 and 65. And this is where 65 splits off from Interstate 24, as it's going to be heading towards Huntsville, while we're going to be heading towards Chattanooga. And here's my picture of Interstate 24 joining with Interstate 40 as we get Knoxville and Chattanooga respectively. And this is where we split off from Interstate 40, as 24 is now going to sign east for Chattanooga, which is a great choice. And on our way out of Nashville, we meet with Tennessee's Interstate 440, as it's being signed for Memphis. And we're also meeting with US Highway 41 here. Once again, I will be doing a southern reboot on this road soon. And then a little ways down the road, we're now meeting with Interstate 840, the way outer loop or bypass of Nashville, as it's being signed for Memphis and Franklin going westbound, and Knoxville and Lebanon going east. And now we're meeting with US Highway 231 here in Murfreesboro, which is being signed for Shelbyville too. And then here we get another mileage sign, and we get Manchester on the top line and Chattanooga as our primary from 80 miles away. And then here in Manchester, we meet with US Highway 41, as US 41 is paralleling us, and sadly it does not get any control cities. And then always down the road, we get another mileage sign, and we get Monteagle on the top line from 17 miles away, and Chattanooga still as our primary. And this here is in the Winchester area, as US 64 eastbound is now going to be joining with us as we head towards Kimball and Chattanooga. And along our way to Chattanooga, we are now entering into the Appalachian Mountains, and this is some awesome scenery. Here in Monteagle, we meet with US Highway 41 alternate, which is being signed for Monteagle and Swanee, as we're going to be continuing straight into the mountains. I personally have not been on this part of Interstate 24, but I would like to someday because this portion of Interstate 24 looks absolutely cool to drive on. Look at all the twists and turns around the mountains. That would be pretty cool to witness. And after going past that cool part on Interstate 24, we get South Pittsburgh as our top line and Chattanooga from 34 miles away. I mean, personally, you can start alternating between Knoxville and Atlanta here, because we're only now 30 miles out from Chattanooga. And then here in Kimball, we meet with US Highway 72, and 64 is going to be joining with 72 here. And no, US 41 is not at this exit. In fact, it is in Jasper, which is a few miles north of this exit. So that should definitely be to US 41, not US 41 itself. TDOT is doing false advertisement here with this exit. And then after passing US 72, we just get another one-liner with Chattanooga from 25 miles away. Again, I want to see either Atlanta or Knoxville now because I don't want to see one-liners. And then a ways down the road, we actually enter into Georgia for a brief time. And we meet the northern terminus of Interstate 59 as it's being signed south for Birmingham, while we're getting signed east for Chattanooga. And here's probably one of the stupidest two-line mileage signs I've ever seen. We get Georgia Route 299 from 3/4 of a mile, and Chattanooga only being 8 miles away. Like, who cares about Georgia Route 299? It will just take you over to US 11. Like, that doesn't need to be on a mileage sign. This should be, again, Chattanooga and either Atlanta or Knoxville. Not this stupid mileage sign. Anyways, after we're entering back into the Tennessee, we meet with US 11, 41, 64, and 72 here, as they take you over to Lookout Valley and Lookout Mountain, which is a place that I definitely would like to visit someday. Also, they're neglecting US 72 here. Anyways, up the road, and we're meeting it once again because those 4 highways were actually paralleling Interstate 24. And we're now getting finally signed east for both Atlanta and Knoxville, because at this point 59 traffic is now joining with us, so they're probably heading towards Knoxville, while the people who were on 24 all the way are going to be heading toward Atlanta. Here we meet with US Highway 27 along with Interstate 124 here, which will take you to downtown Chattanooga, as we are going to now be current with 27 South in the same control cities. And here's that exit where US Highway 27 leaves us, as it's being signed south for Rossville Boulevard. I don't like that. And then our last major exit is US Highway 41, which is being signed south for East Ridge. And then a ways up the road, we finally end at Interstate 75, which is being signed for Knoxville and Atlanta respectively. And I think Interstate 24 might be the only interstate where it has palindromic endings. We start at Interstate 57 and end at Interstate 75. So with that, we're going to be turning around and doing westbound Interstate 24. So we begin here on 75 itself. This is the southbound direction, as we can see that we get a mention of 2 Interstate 59 for Chattanooga and Birmingham, while the northbound lanes here we can see, we just only get a mention of Interstate 24. I mean, probably if you're coming on northbound 75, you'd probably take an Interstate 20 to get to 59, so I think it kind of makes sense. And then once we get onto Interstate 24 itself, our first major exit is US Highway 27, and 27 North is now going to be concurrent with 24 to head towards Nashville and Birmingham. And here's where US 27 and Interstate 124 splits off from Interstate 24, as it's being signed for downtown Chattanooga, as we're still getting the same control cities of Nashville and Birmingham. And then on the outskirts of Chattanooga, we meet with US 11, 41, 64, and 72 once again, and they just get Lookout Valley. Again, why is TDOT neglecting 72? And we're entering into the Georgia once again for that brief moment. And here is the exit for Interstate 59 as it's being signed south for Birmingham, while we're slowly getting signed west for Nashville. And we can see here that GDOT has made the ultimate error of all time and doing an exit error. As you can see here, exit 167 is these two lanes here, but for some reason GDOT has made the exit sign go for the 24 lanes. And Interstate 24 is not exiting itself. It's supposed to be for Interstate 59. Come on, GDOT. You have made the ultimate error here. In our first mileage sign, after leaving Interstate 59, we get Nashville as our primary from 119 miles away. And we're now entering back into the state of Tennessee. And here we are crossing over the Nickajack Lake in eastern Tennessee, and we get an absolutely stunning view of the highway here. Like, I haven't been on this portion of Interstate 24 in 12 years, but it looks absolutely beautiful. I want to come back here someday. And then here in the Kimball area, we meet with US 72. In this direction, they are telling us that 72 East will take us to US 41. And here in the Kimball area, we'll meet with US Highway 72 once again. And this direction, they're telling us that'll take it over to 41. Why couldn't they do that on eastbound Interstate 24? TDOT, why? Also, that 72 West exit should definitely be Huntsville. 72 is the fastest way to Huntsville from here, if you're coming from eastern Tennessee. Why is it signed for South Pittsburgh? This is totally provincial, TDOT. Anyways, up the road, we're now getting Nashville still as our primary from 103 miles away. And here in the Monteagle area, we meet with US Highway 41 as it's being signed for Monteagle and Tracy City. And this is where US 64 splits off from Interstate 24, heading towards Pelham and Winchester. And here we get another mileage sign with Nashville still as our primary. I mean, I don't know why bother looking at these mileage signs. They have all been perfect so far. And here in Murfreesboro, we meet with US Highway 231, and this direction of Interstate 24 is just one singular exit. And here we meet with Interstate 840 once again, and it just gets the same control cities that we saw on eastbound Interstate 24. And now we're meeting with Tennessee Highway 155, which kind of makes up the outer loop of the Nashville area. And here we meet with 440, and we're now going to be joining with Interstate 40 westbound to head into downtown Nashville. And this is where we split off from Interstate 40 as we head towards Interstate 65, being signed for both Clarksville and Louisville. And here's where we join with Interstate 65, as once again we just get the same control cities. And this is where we split off from Interstate 65 a couple miles north of downtown Nashville, as we're now getting signed solely west for Clarksville. I mean, yes, Clarksville is the biggest city that Interstate 24 will pass through for the rest of its route, but I'm pretty sure that most people now taking Interstate 24 will be heading out west to like St. Louis and Chicago and stuff. So I prefer to see also St. Louis on that sign too, TDOT. And on our way out of the Nashville area, we meet with Tennessee Highway 155 once again. And here we get Springfield on top line and Clarksville as our primary. Again, I want to see St. Louis here because that is the main draw for 24 westbound traffic. But luckily, once we get closer to Clarksville, we get St. Louis as our primary from 271 miles away. Let's see if it sticks. Apparently not, because in the Clarksville area, we're now getting Paducah as our primary from 99 miles away. I mean, sure, Paducah is a big city in Kentucky, but it's not as big as St. Louis. And here we meet with US Highway 79 in Clarksville as it's being signed for Clarksville and Guthrie. And on this exit, we're now getting signed for Paducah. Again, I prefer to see St. Louis instead. And we're now entering into the state of Kentucky, so let's see what Kentucky has to offer on westbound 24. And here our first major exit is for US 41 alternate, as it will take you up into Hopkinsville. And now I meet with the Pennyroyal Parkway or Interstate 169, as it will also take you up into Hopkinsville. And here in Cadiz, we meet with US Highway 68 once again, along with Kentucky 80. And our next mileage time, we get 69 on the top line, Eddyville as our secondary, and Paducah as our primary. We do not need Eddyville on the sign. That should definitely say 69 Paducah, then St. Louis. We should have St. Louis on all of our mileage signs here. And here's that exit for Interstate 69, and I don't know why it's not an overhead sign. This is a fairly important junction. There should be an overhead sign here. We're not in Pennsylvania. Here we meet with US Highway 62 and 641, as it's a sign for Eddyville and that second town once again. And this is where we split off from Interstate 69, as it's just being signed south for Fulton. I mean, once Interstate 69 is more built up, I prefer to see Memphis there too, as we're not getting signed for Paducah and Calvert City. Calvert City is for US Highway 62, while we get Paducah. And here we get another one-liner with Paducah from only 14 miles away. Seriously, what is the deal with one-liners on this interstate? That should definitely have St. Louis on here. Here we meet with US Highway 68, as it's just being signed solely for Paducah, because it meets US 62. And always up the road, we finally get St. Louis coming back on our mileage signs from 172 miles away. And here we meet with US 62 and US 45, as they're being signed for Mayfield and Paducah. And our last major exit is US Highway 60 and Interstate 24 Business, as it's being signed for Wycliffe too. And our next mileage sign, we now get St. Louis as our primary still from 159 miles away. This is the last mileage sign in Kentucky, so let us see what IDOT has to offer on Interstate 24. But first, here we get the Welcome to Illinois sign. They should really fix all these signs, because all the O's are faded, unless if that's supposed to be like a gimmick for something. And our first major exit is US Highway 45, being signed for Metropolis and Brookport. Oh, are you kidding me? Instead of doing St. Louis, we just get Interstate 57 from 35 miles away. I got a question. Who's going to be taking Interstate 24 all the way up to Interstate 57 just to go back south to Memphis when you had the option to do like Interstate 40 or 69? Just sign St. Louis here, IDOT. Why are you being an idiot here? And at random junctions we're being signed for Interstate 57. Come on, that should be St. Louis. Just sign St. Louis. Here we meet with Illinois Highway 146 as it take you into Mania and Golconda. And after that exit, we just get another one-liner with Interstate 57 from 13 miles away. If you want a one-liner, this should be St. Louis, or do St. Louis and Chicago, because people will also be taking Interstate 57 up to Chicago too. We do not need a one-liner for an entire interstate. This is totally stupid. And always up the road, we finally end at Interstate 57, and they're telling us that if we want to get to St. Louis, or points there, we should take 57 north. If they're telling us now, why couldn't they head over to the mileage signs and at the random junctions? Sometimes I just don't get IDOT. And we end here at Interstate 57, where we have the option to exit onto 57 south for Memphis, or we can stay straight to head on to 57 north, signed for Chicago, and to St. Louis and points beyond there. So with that, we end Interstate 24, and we move on to, the places I'll go. So these are all the places that I'd like to visit if I ever was on 24 again, or the section of 24 that I have not been on. If you have any requests for me to visit, please let me know down in the comment section below. And I'd love to visit those places if you ever have any suggestions. So that ends Interstate 24. Thank you all so much for watching this episode on Interstate 24. I hope you got to learn a little bit more about why Interstate 24 is not the best signed interstate. I mean, sure, it is pretty scenic in eastern Tennessee, but it's definitely not the best signed interstate, all because of IDOT and Kentucky and Tennessee all wanting to sign Paducah over St. Louis. So with that, here are my next few highways. If you have any intersection requests for any of these upcoming highways, please let me know down in the comment section below, and I'll make sure to shout you out once these highways release. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you all next week as we do our Air Shields episode.